Welcome to University of Hoops, the show that gives you an inside look at the people making everything happen on your favorite basketball team. Today, we're very excited to welcome University of Tulsa women's basketball assistant coach and director of basketball operations, Jeff Farina-Morelos. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Appreciate it. Excited to be on here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. Excited to get into your story. Speaking of which, you've had quite the path to get to where you are today. But before we dive too far into that, I want to talk about the position that you're in right now. So, what are your main responsibilities, and what's your focus on Coach Nelp's staff?
Yeah, so my main responsibilities, being a director of operations, it's kind of you wear many different hats. So my main responsibilities kind of just fall under team care, which can be team nutrition, team meals, anything the players need to compete at an elite level goes through me, and I do my very best to get that to them, so they can keep performing at the level they are. And then I do budgeting, overseeing that budget is a big one with team travel, and recruiting and all that. So those are really the big primary focuses. But again, you wear so many different hats that you face many different challenges during the day. So you just have to accommodate to all those different challenges you may face.
What's your schedule like on a game day versus a non-game day?
Yeah, so on a game day, as a director of operations, you're not only focused on your own team, but you have to make sure that the venue you're at, home game or away game, is ready for your team, and the opponent if it's a home game. So I'm communicating with their adobo. I'm helping with our pregame meal. I'm helping with warm-ups and all that, communicating with our event manager, our facilities people, because there's just so much that goes into a game that not only the fans don't realize, but even for myself in this position now, I'm still learning. And so just, being that liaison to so many different departments and stuff is important. And so just making sure it all runs smoothly on game day is a big priority. But you can't forget too, when you're still planning for the next game. So whether you're at home or away, you have those road trips and stuff further down the road. So you're still trying to tackle those while managing your game day operations. And then on non-game days, you're on the phone a lot. You're making calls to hotels, opponents, to schedule practices. You're in meetings, just making sure that the schedule that you planned, is on par, and you're on task with everything, and your players have what they need. So, like I said, you just wear so many different hats that your daily routines just change, and that's something that I actually appreciate because I'm not someone who likes to have a 9 to 5 and sit at a desk. And so being able to have these different hats and wear them just allows me to experience these unique experiences that, are in this industry.
Working on a small staff, can you kind of talk about how involved you are with the player development and anything that happens on the court?
Yeah. So, work on a small staff, we have, our assistant coaches, and then a player development person on our staff as well. But we work hand in hand, and making sure our girls are getting their shots up, getting their workouts in, whether that be, helping with rebounding, actually conducting workouts as well. On the court during practices, we're there. I also oversee managers. So, depending on our manager schedules, I might have to run the clock or I'll be on the court. But that's also, I take so much pride in being on the court, letting my voice be heard. I mean, just encouraging, the athletes to really hone in on their craft and really take pride in their development as well, because I think a lot of athletes, want to get to the top but don't appreciate the journey and all that goes into it. So helping them appreciate that journey, is something I take pride in.
Speaking about development and the journey and all that, I mean, for you, man, like taking your whole basketball journey up to this point into account, and this kind of being your first year as a full-time staff member, would 18-year-old you going to Marquette as a student, would you believe that this is where you are today?
Definitely not. Yeah, when I was coming into Marquette, I wasn't even into basketball. That was getting into basketball was a journey in itself. So uh, every step of the way here now is just a blessing, and I'm so grateful for it. And so, maybe when I entered my sophomore year, I was thinking, I really do like this industry, and I wanted, become a Dobo and become a graduate assistant, all that, the process that goes into getting to where I am today. I thought about that, but I wouldn't have thought I would be here now, especially at the age I am. I just turned 24 in October, so to be in this position at this age is unique and rare. And so I take, pride in that, and I'm so happy for that. And it's all thanks to Angie for, trusting me with this role. And it's a big role. And like I said, it comes with a learning curve and whatnot. But 19-year-old self or 18-year-old self, my 18-year-old self would never believe that I would be here now. So
Yeah, absolutely. Super cool. And happy for you and all your success that you've had. Of course, you guys won a share of the conference, and that's got to be sort of like a big tip in your
yeah,
cap for your first season. And now that the regular season games are sort of over, and you're heading into tournament time, it's everybody's favorite time. It's March
oh
Madness
yeah.
time for the women's side and the men's side, of course. And
Hmm.
uh, of course, you're hoping that your season is far from over, but um, I'm hoping that you have a little bit of time somewhere in here as you prepare for tournaments and things like that to kind of reflect on what this year has been like. And that's what I'll ask you here, and maybe that'll start that process for you a little bit is like
Yeah.
what is this first year meant to you? And just take us through kind of like what some of those ups and downs have been in your first full-time year.
Yeah, like I said, being in this position at this age comes with so many different, you know, pros and cons. You're dealing with a lot of people who are your age. Your graduate assistants may be older or younger than you. Your managers are, just as old as you. So having to earn their respect at this age, takes some time. And being able to do that, I think allowed me to have a successful year. There's definitely, like you said, there's ups and downs that come with this season. No season's perfect, whether that be you have mistakes that happen on the road, and you just have to learn. You have to control what you can control. I think that's one of the biggest things that, in this industry that gets said a lot is control what you can control, because that that just allows that season to go well. So I haven't even started reflecting on it because it's, March Madness. We just, had that win last night at Tulane to clinch that share the title, like you mentioned. So yeah, it hasn't haven't really reflected on it. But with this question, I can really just think that, it's been a roller coaster, and it's been, the year has gone by so fast, and I already can't believe we're planning for, conference tournament in the next couple of days, and postseason after that. So if I can just, describe my year in just, a few sentences, it would just be, a roller coaster of emotions, but, a fun one, one that I enjoyed and one that I hope to enjoy in the future as well and build off of this year.
Absolutely. And I'm very excited to kind of get into your journey now because you definitely have one of the more unique stories that we've had so far on our show. So I want to take us back to the beginning. You're from South Orange County, of course,
Yes, sir.
just like I am as well.
Yes, sir.
And you're a former lacrosse player at a school that I was very familiar with in high school, of course, Servite High School, and um, hadn't played organized basketball since elementary school. After
Yeah.
moving halfway across the country, how did you originally get involved in basketball in the first place?
Yeah, so this is a story that I always, take it's just it's I don't want to say it's emotional, but it's just something that I just never thought of, because um I just was basically the whole story is I was basically just in my dorm. My neighbor next to me knew the basketball players at Marquette. So they were up at our dorm one day, and next thing you know, I grew a really good relationship with them. And then, further down the year, they're kind of just like, hey, you should become a manager. And I was like, no, that's not for me. They're like, you would have to do laundry. They explained it. And I was like, that sounds terrible, right? Like doing players' laundry and their draws and all that type of stuff. I was like, that's definitely not for me. But the more I looked into it and kind of focusing, I did want to stay connected to sports. I kind of heard that the manager position can set you up for a career in sports, whether that be in basketball or something else. So after kind of having some talks with my parents and other people in my network, I I took the leap into the manager position, tried out, and it was a big tryout process. At Marquette, being a basketball oriented school, they have a lot of kids who want to be a manager, so it's a tryout process. So I did that, and having the players vouch for me, really paid off. And so I'm forever grateful to them, because they didn't do that, I have no idea where I would be, sitting here now with the lack of experience I did have on the court in the basketball realm, since I didn't play organized basketball since I got cut in sixth grade. it's just been a blessing. And so yeah, those I shout out to Jamal, Theo, and Greg. They really helped me get into this industry, and forever grateful for that.
Do you have any favorite stories from your time as a student manager at Marquette?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few. I mean, being a manager, you just get all those different unique experiences. I've had, the opportunity to meet, a lot of NBA players that come through when they play the Bucks. They practice at a Marquette's facility. So being able to, just meet some of the greats was awesome. I think my favorite story though is we did forget a shoe bag on our way to UConn. That was it's my favorite story because looking back at it now, it's just a memory that will stick with me forever. In the moment, I was for sure panicking. I just remember being on the plane and getting an email from our ticket office, and it was just no title, no anything. It was just a picture. It was just a picture of our shoe bag left in our elevator, and I was just like, my heart sank. So luckily, we did travel with two shoe bags. We have a primary and a secondary. Unfortunately, that was our primary, so we did have to think quick. We let our Dobo know, and that on that flight, we booked another flight for a manager to come out with it. So they flew overnight, got to Hartford at like 1:30 in the morning, picked them up in the rain and shoe bag in hand. So we were able to, provide the players with what they needed for the game. But that's just some of the stuff you run into, and as a manager, you have to be willing to go those extra steps to help out. And I think that just makes it so special.
Yeah, I mean, players are so superstitious, and I mean,
Yeah.
for good reason. Like any of the, especially whether it's like top D1 guys or NBA guys,
Yeah.
you always hear them talk about how even one little thing going wrong in their routine
Yeah.
can mess things up, and I think that's why people like yourself at the student manager level when you're in school are so important. And you know what the important thing
Yeah.
is like they have the shoes for the game, right? And that's like
Yep.
that's what counts.
Yep.
That's what history remembers. Speaking of history though, the word on the street is that you became known as the deflection board guy at Marquette. So I'm wondering if you can explain, like, number one, what that is, and number two, how did that come to be?
Yeah, so when Shaka got hired, he kind of brought back the deflection board. He did it at VCU, and so it kind of just counts, deflections, and we kind of we counted, steals, anything. If you disrupt the ball, on the defensive side, we count it as a deflection. So we would track it with tallies, and we would track it by player, and then have a total count. So that just really became it just gained popularity because people would see me with a big whiteboard sitting on the bench holding it up at timeouts, or just the video would be on me and I'll be on the jumbotron. And so really just really gained popularity. And so yeah, I kind of just got into that because the role just was assigned to me, and I was like, okay, I'll hold the whiteboard up on timeouts above my head. And like I said, it just came, and it just took off. And then pretty soon they would have marketing things tied with it. If we get 32 deflections, everyone gets a free sandwich from Chick-fil-A. Like it just really took off. And pretty soon there was an article written about me. I was getting interviewed for it, and I was just like, guys, I'm just a manager doing my job, tracking something simple. But at the end of the day, it brought a lot of energy to the bench, to the crowd. Our players loved it. They would come off the court and they would say, Jeff, I had two deflections. Did you get that? And I was like, don't worry, I got it. You're all taken care of, because, we tracked that really intensely, and our players took pride in that. I think that's what makes Marquette so successful right now, is that culture they have over there. And it all starts with those deflections and on that defensive side with the floor slaps and all that. So that's what they have going over there. And Shaka's doing a great job, and he'll continue to have that deflection board for as long as he's the head coach.
Yeah, I mean, kind of talking a little bit more about the importance of that role. We've also heard through the grapevine that there was a saying when you were a student manager with the team, which was, "When there's a Jeff, there's a way."
Yeah.
So can you explain kind of what that means, and maybe how that just messaging wise to you is something, and to everybody out there listening and watching this, like mentality wise, like how that can kind of help you as you go forward in the business.
Yeah. That saying was given from my strength coach at Marquette, Todd Smith, who's a phenomenal guy. I was just always that manager willing to do something, and not even the willingness was what stood out. Is I even if I didn't have an answer, I would say, "Yes, sir, I got you. Go find an answer and report back." Right? It because I think the biggest pet peeve I think that I noticed as a manager that from the coaches was that if they got deer in headlight looks, right? It was it showed them that we weren't prepared. So for me, it was I always was willing to do something or solve the problem or find a solution to it, even if I didn't have it at that moment. And I think that's what is important in this industry is you have to be willing to work and find something out. And no one's ever going to have the answers right away, right? You may have an answer here and there, but you're never going to have every answer for everyone immediately. And that's something you just have to accept. And accepting that, it's a humiliating experience as well because, you have to be in that position, but it's a humbling experience. So, accepting that was something that I think made me a standout. And so that's where that phrase came from. And it's helping me in this industry now is because I have a motor. I keep going. I'll keep working. I'm a workhorse, and I'm a yes sir, yes ma'am type of guy. And so that's what's important is because if you just show that even if it's that much you don't know, it just kind of jeopardizes their confidence in you. So I believe just having that willingness to continue to put your head down, work, and find a solution to anyone's, problems on the court, off the court, it just allows you to be, a great manager.
How did everything that you learned during your time at Marquette sort of prepare you, not only when you became a graduate assistant, but then also into where you are today? How did that kind of prepare you, you think, for what was to follow?
Yeah, I think being a manager gives you a unique experience because you see the behind the scenes role. And so when you become a graduate assistant coach, you do a little bit more of the on the court stuff, but having that experience of, the coding, the film breakdown, was beneficial to me. At UNC Greensboro, we had four graduate assistants, which is a lot for a staff. Usually it's about two. But most of them were past players. So they would run scout team and all that, but they would still code, but their coding skills may not have been good as me, who was doing it 4 years as a manager. So just having that background allowed me to have a little bit more, to offer when I got to UNC Greensboro, and just also knowing kind of the operation side. You were a manager, you work closely with the Dobo to get things done on the road, to get things done on home games. So that also allowed me to have a little bit more knowledge in that realm of things with that. So I think that would set me up for the success. Even now, I'm just so used to like working those long days or just having an understanding of the operation side. Because when I got the call for here, everything that Angie was mentioning, I was like, oh, I did that at Marquette. Oh, I did that UNC Greensboro. Oh, I did that there. So it just really sets you up. So being a manager gives you that experience to see everything from a bigger perspective than most people don't see.
You talked about coding. What tools or programs do you think it would be wise for people to learn that want to get into this business?
Yeah, there is many different schools use different software, but the two biggest ones I would say would be Huddle Sports Code. As a manager, you want to learn how to chop up film, even if it's just simple offense and defensive clips, right? That just goes a long way because you're just getting an understanding of how that software operates, how it runs, how you can troubleshoot it when it doesn't run correctly. And sometimes that happens a lot. I remember live coding on the bench at UNC Greensboro, and sometimes things go wrong, and you have to during the game start trying to figure out how to make it work. So yeah, definitely sports code is my number one. My number two is Adobe Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator. I think as a manager you should learn that, especially if you want to become a graduate assistant. You have that opportunity to really show yourself as a important person because you have that knowledge of Adobe Sports Code. I mean, Adobe Photoshop. Sorry. And so, with that, like I remember when I came here to Tulsa, that's one of the questions they asked me was, "Hey, we don't have any graphic people, working hand in hand with our department with women's basketball. So we do all of our graphics in house. So it's our coaches, our assistant coaches doing it, our graduate assistant doing it. So that's something that just separates you. And I had someone tell me that as a manager that Adobe Photoshop really makes you just such a jack of all trades.
What's your best piece of advice for somebody trying to break into the basketball industry?
Yeah, I think my best piece of advice for someone trying to break into the basketball industry is you have to learn to handle situations that are uncomfortable. And what I mean by that is there are very stressful situations that come about. You work long days, you're always on the road, and you're just, put in those positions that, most people wouldn't want to do on a daily basis. And so you just have to be aware that, that's the life you're going to live, and continue to build your network is another piece of advice I would give. Um, this industry is built off networks, and that's the honest truth. The resume can only get you so far, and so breaking into this network, and it can just be one person. You just need one person to really get you in. I know we kind of just talked about it before this podcast about how we kind of knew all these shared names and different people. So it's a small world, it's a bubble. So once you get in, you're in. But you just have to continue to strive to build yourself up in this industry.
Yeah, of course. How do you kind of like grow that network that you were just talking about that? Like just elaborate a little more on what you were saying there.
Yeah. So what I mean by growing the network is you really want to step outside your comfort zone with meeting with different coaches. There's different programs that allow you to do that. I know when I was a student manager, I was part of a program called Grow the Game. And that allowed me to meet and connect with different coaches outside of, and you were paired randomly. So I think that's what allowed me to grow my network on the women's side and on the men's side. And so that program set me up for success. But even I was reaching out to people, by myself through email, through text. And once that relationship was established, I maintained it. That's one thing that I think a lot of young people don't do is they reach out to someone, then they just leave it at that. They don't maintain that relationship. And it can be as simple as, "Hey, happy birthday" text, or a good game. A coach might have just won a big game. Text them congratulations, right? And just having those little markers on a calendar of, hey, I haven't reached out to this person in a few weeks. Let me reach out to them. Because you don't want that. You don't only want to reach out to them when you need something. That's not sincere. That's not authentic. You want these relationships to be sincere and authentic. So, um, you know, managing them that way allows you to not only enter, this industry with a strong network, but allows you to become successful with that network and have people willing to put their neck out for you for jobs.
What's the best piece of advice that you've been given by a coach?
I've been given so two pieces of advice that I've been given. One was from Shaka: to give anything less than your best is to sacrifice your gift. That goes for players, that goes for everyone on staff. Because we all have a role. And if someone is not giving their best, effort in that role, everyone feels that effect. So that's why I always take pride in everything I do. There's no job too small or no job too big. Even as a Dobo, if the floor is wet, I'll wipe it. I don't look for a manager. I'm first one there. Might be my manager instincts kicking in, but muscle memory there. But it's just something that I take pride in, right? Second piece of advice that I got was from my assistant coach at UNC Greensboro, Donnie Lind. He said, always be a front of mind type of guy. That's what gets you jobs. And that kind of goes back to that networking piece. You constantly communicating with someone, you're in the front of their mind. So that allows you, to stand out. And again, to piggyback off what I've said, those connections have to be sincere and authentic.
What would you say it takes to, along with those connections that you make, to take to excuse me to move up in the business?
Yeah, I think it just takes the willingness to go the extra step. You have to be humble about it. You have to be patient. You can't look for a promotion. That's one thing I think a lot of people do is they look for their next promotion. It will come to you. You just have to be patient. You have to trust the process. Everyone's everyone's race is different. They all run at their own pace. I was lucky enough to have, the people behind me to get me to where I am at this age. And like I said, I wouldn't have believed it. If you told me I'll be here at 23, 24 years old, I would have said no way. So I think that's the biggest piece of advice is just you just got to be willing. You got to be willing.
What's one thing that you think would be helpful for people to know that maybe they're younger and they're thinking they want to be a coach or they want to go into basketball ops? What's one thing that you think they should know before going into this? And that can be like a good thing, a bad thing, or somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, like I said, you work those long hours. You wear many hats. You have to be willing to just troubleshoot anything, solve any problems. So, like I said, the director of basketball operations in this industry, you're doing so much. You're doing so much. You're analyzing contracts. You're signing them. You're making sure everything runs smoothly. So just having an understanding of maybe contract terms, what some terms mean on contracts, what different things apply to the program, just allows you to understand that it's constantly moving. It's there's so many moving parts here that you just have to be aware of. And at the end of the day, you always want to take care of yourself too. So that's one thing is important too, is just don't feel the stress of, oh my gosh, there's a lot of stuff, I don't want to do that anymore. You do have a lot of help with your staff, but you just have to take into account that you are there's the two most important people on the staff are head coach and director of basketball operations. And I will always say that because director of basketball operations runs so much put so much into the program, and it's all the behind the scenes stuff. So that's why most people don't even know what director of basketball operations exists. So yeah, so that's my advice to really understanding that if you do want to get into this position, just understand that it's not a 9 to 5 job, and it's not the description always isn't what the job description isn't always accurate.
Absolutely. Makes a lot of sense. And I think that's something that we've heard by doing this show a lot from coaches and dobos and everywhere in between, scouts, everywhere in between.
Yeah.
Um, Last thing that I'll ask you, and this is something that we ask all our guests, is what's your why behind what you're doing in basketball, coach?
Yeah, I think my why is my family, and also the people that put their neck out for me. My family always is always my number one supporters. They really help me get through days and just motivate me. It's first people I'm texting after games and all that, or calling after games too. So those are my number one whys. But also the people put the neck out for me. They got me to where I am today. So it's that I'm making sure that I make you guys proud as well. Because like I said, I have so much gratitude for those people that helped me get to where I am today.
Jeff Farina-Morelos from Tulsa women's basketball. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today, coach. It's been great talking to you.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. And thank you to the viewers and the listeners for tuning into another week of University of Hoops, Hoops U. We're coming to you every single week with interviews with great people like Coach here from Tulsa, coaches, scouts, director of basketball operations, everywhere in between, taking you behind the scenes of your favorite basketball teams at all levels. We are posting content every single week under our on all social platforms, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, or X as it's known now, which is at Univ Hoops. That's at UNIV Hoops. We'll be posting clips from this show, and you can find clips from all our other shows as well. So thanks again for watching and listening, and we will see you next week.